Hello, everyone. Welcome to our International Widows Day webinar. It is so great to have all of you here. We've had a great response this year, about 200 of you requesting live and about 1,500 that will receive the recording. This is a new day, and we are just so honored to have you, each one of you here for this very important presentation. We're going to spend about an hour together, and so sit back. If I was you, I would have a notebook, take some notes. You're probably going to have some questions and some comments. You can actually make those in the Q&A. We may get to answering some of those today, but if not, we will certainly email you a response. So definitely communicate there. Behind us here, we have Heather Price, and she is on the back end of Zoom helping us with the webinar, and she will see your questions. Okay, here we go. I am Carolyn Moore, the host for your evening tonight. I'm a widow advocate. I'm also the founder of a Modern Widows Club, the movement for widow care. I have had the privilege of being on the National Bereavement Advisory Council, along with some very distinguished professionals at the New York Life Foundation. They are leaders in the bereavement support advocacy for families in the United States. I'm also a mom of two amazing daughters, and I became a widow at age 37 on February 14th, 2000. So it's been 26 years of being a widow, being a mentor, leader, and an advocate. My mom was widowed at age 52. So there were two generations of widows in my nuclear family. And this is when I really started to see with lived experience the various needs and for the multiple generations of support. So it wasn't really just my experience, it was my mother's before me, and then came the thousands of women that I met over the last 26 years. So I wanted to just give a little bit of history here. So, what is International Widows Day? It's interesting because when someone first finds out about International Widows Day, they often say to me, I didn't know there was one. And so I wanted to just give a little bit of history here. For many women around the world, the devastating loss of a partner is magnified by a long-term fight for basic rights and dignity. And despite the fact that there are more than 258 million widows around the world, widows have historically been left unseen, unsupported, and unmeasured in our societies. The problems for widows in developing countries, poverty, violence, health, and conflict-related situations, we basically fall under the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, as number 5, gender equality. The United Nations has observed this date on June 23rd since 2010 to draw attention to the voices and experiences of widows and to galvanize the unique support that they need. So this is just a little bit of history on what is International Widows Day, but the next slide is going to show you where it came from. The significance of this day is that in 1954, there was a woman named Shrimati Pushpa Wati Lumba. She was the mother of a gentleman named Lord Lumba. You see his photo here. And she became a widow in India. His stories of seeing his mother's lack of dignity in widowhood growing up instilled in him a deep sense of becoming a defender for widows. He is known for giving away thousands of sewing machines to destitute widows in India in order to give them a tool and to teach them skills to provide an occupation to support their families with dignity. So on December 21st, 2010, the United Nations General Assembly formally adopted that day as International Widows Day, endorsing by unanimous acclaim. So by 2015, the first 215-page Global Widows Report, which I have a rare actual hard copy of this, launched, highlighting the critical issue for the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is where I come in. I met Lord Raj Lumba and discovered the real needs widows had worldwide. For me, when he launched this Global Widows Report, I happened to be invited and was in the room, and I heard the many widow advocates from around the world. And I had to decide for myself right then, would you become a widow advocate or were you going to walk away? The information that I was provided at that meeting was truly a game changer for me. And it took me about a year to absorb the findings in the Global Widows Report, as a humanitarian, to understand the injustices that women were facing. But I ultimately decided, here I am, that I was going to choose to expand my knowledge and to begin looking at my own country of origin and what we could do to help support this global crisis. So in 2022, I traveled to London, England to present Lord Raj Lumba our MWC Legacy Award for his lifetime achievement for empowering widows in the most dire and disadvantaged of circumstances. He introduced me to his family and he took me to lunch at the House of Lords, where I met other countries' widow advocates. It was a big change in me being widowed to really understanding the landscape of why widow advocacy is so important. So I hope that helps you understand how we got here today. The silence that is surrounding widowhood has created generations of unnecessary suffering, leaving millions to navigate grief, identity loss, financial instability, health challenges, and social isolation alone. This is one of the most significant and overlooked issues of our time, not because it is rare, but because it is complex. And complex problems require bold, revolutionary, compassionate, holistic, and interdisciplinary solutions that challenge outdated systems and to reimagine new care and what it can look like. This is not about charity. This is about justice. This is not simply about helping widows survive. This is about transforming how humanity responds to loss. It is audacious to believe that centuries of exclusion can be undone. And it is also necessary to believe that it can happen. This is the spark of International Widows Day. So why does today matter? Well, here are some of the harrowing statistics that represent real women around the world who are facing the challenges of widowhood. Here it is, 258 million worldwide, a population largely without dedicated support infrastructure, and 11.6 million widows in the United States living across every state, most invisible in policy, public health, and philanthropy. Until this year, nobody has comprehensively asked who is currently serving widows. Since MWC is a United States nonprofit, I came to the realization at the Global Widows Report launch that as a first world country, we needed representation for the women in our country. And if we empowered millions of widows here, they would turn around and be a bold voice for the millions of other widows who might not have a voice or a platform to stand on like we do. So, over the last 10 years, I've spent 10 years listening literally to tens of thousands of widows from all corners of the world. And the widow advocates, I listen to their stories. I listen to those who actually are advocating for them, their customs, their cultures, their challenges. This year, we were so excited to see that New Jersey, yay, raise your hands if you're from New Jersey. New Jersey became the first state to officially recognize International Widows Day. It took about 3 years. So I want to do a shout out to Senator Gordon Johnson for lifting this cause up and honoring your state with that honor. I hope other states follow suit. New Jersey also got the first grief bill passed to bring grief education into schools. So critical for families with children. So this inspired me to create something called a declaration, the Widow's Bill of Rights. This Widow's Bill of Rights affirms the fundamental dignity, equality, and the specific needs of widows, calling for recognition of their struggles and the implementation of supportive measures to ensure they can rebuild their lives with security and respect. I will share all 12 articles with explanations on why that particular article was included. And both nationally, and when you see the articles, you're going to, wherever you're from and listening to this from, you're going to be able to see it through your own filter of what you are what the impact is, whether it's nationally or internationally, because first world and third world widows have struggles of various degrees within each one of the articles. But before we begin, I want to share each of these. I want to share that these are the main 6 areas where widows struggle. I want to say something of real importance here before we actually get started, because for me, it's a pivotal one and it's an intentional one where we no longer need to mask what is happening in widowhood. That's what this webinar is about. We're removing the mask. We're exposing the realities that generations of widowed people have hidden in the name of survival. The silence was never weakness, it was protection. We all have worn the mask because we had to, because the truth felt too heavy to carry in a world unprepared to see us, support us, or even understand what widowhood truly takes from a life. But survival is not the destination. Healing demands courage, the courage to remove the mask and speak the truth, to name what we need from society, from our communities, from our institutions, and from people closest to us, to say out loud what widows have whispered for centuries, that widowhood is not merely a personal tragedy, it is a profound social, health, economic, and human issue that has been systemically ignored and rendered invisible. We refuse to hide the true cost of widowhood any longer because what remains hidden cannot be healed. The silence surrounding widowhood has created generations of unnecessary suffering, leaving millions to navigate grief, identity loss, financial instability, health challenges, social isolation alone. This is the most significant and overlooked issue of our time. And and it's not because it's rare, it's because it's complex. Like I said before, complex problems require bold, revolutionary, compassionate, holistic, and interdisciplinary solutions. And that is what we are walking into now. So this is very important what we do, because this is really not about survival. This is about transforming how humanity responds to loss. Like I said before, it's audacious to believe that centuries of exclusion can be undone. So we are the spark that ignites this global movement, a fire that burns away with, with what no longer serves humanity at its highest calling: the indifference, the invisibility, the isolation, all of that. We will build systems of hope and healing and belonging and leadership after we see where the mask has been put on. So today we're breaking the silence and we're breaking the chains of exclusion. And it might feel uncomfortable to hear some of what you're going to witness today and hear, but no widow will be invisible again. So you may find yourself being impacted today with what you, like I said, hear and see, and that is truly heartbreaking. It is mostly widows that are on this webinar, and it has supported other widows around the world and organizations. My hope is that more will join us, and we will no longer have the sole responsibility of shouldering this cause and this movement on our own, because we have lasting changes to create for generations to come. So let's look at the first one. The first article is Right to Equal Treatment and Non-Discrimination. Every widowhood has a widow. Every family has one. Yet widows are still passed over for jobs, denied housing, and excluded from communities simply because of who they lost. When something is that common, it disappears into the background noise. And this is not a coincidence. That's invisibility by design. We want equal treatment and for discrimination to end for widows in all ways and all forms. Number two, right to financial security and economic independence. Widow poverty is in the data. It's in the Social Security office. It's in HR manual that stops benefits the day a spouse dies. Yet no one calls it a policy crisis. Fish don't notice water. Widows are drowning in a system that has never been built to see them. We have a right to financial policies that do not further harm widows and instead encourages economic independence with absolute satisfaction. Number three, right to adequate social support systems. Has anyone here ever had a hard time finding support? Well, breast cancer affects 4 million survivors in North America, and widows number nearly 3 times that. There isn't a ribbon, there isn't a national walk, there's no federal office, there's no caucus in DC. Grief discrimination is everywhere, and almost no one has named it yet. We have a right to be seen in systems already built and involved in creating new support systems, infusing our lived experience. Number four, right to parental recognition and child custody. Some widows become solo mothers overnight. And some become grandmothers, raising grandchildren with no transition plan, no policy pathway, no institutional hand extended. The world just kept going, kept moving. No one had a name for what she was navigating. It's hard to believe that some women lose their children due to judgments, family negotiations, and custody battles, and a lack of recognition for their worth in being lifted up because they are the first uh, person to be able to protect the family. And this is a paradox. The crisis is pervasive. The response is absent. We have a right to have systems and solutions to preserve family stability and to be included in the research that shows how critical mothers are in creating double prevention and double impact. And on top of that, double protection to keep families together. Slide next. Article 5, right to healthcare and medical decision making. Sometimes we sit in hospital waiting rooms alone. Sometimes we lose our health care, our insurance. Caregivers collapse, health care gaps, medical isolation. It's in every hospital, and it's very real for our community. And almost no policy documents the name of it. It doesn't create a path to protect widows. We have a right to ask for better health care terms when a marriage or a partnership ends, and it is going to affect our overall health for ourselves and our families. Article number 6. We have a right to housing security. If you paid into a home for 30 years and then widowhood changes everything, your credit profile changes, your income changes, your legal standing can sometimes crumble or disappear altogether. Widow housing insecurity isn't rare. It's just unnamed. Too many widows get priced out of their homes or face great losses in selling them to disadvantaged tax implications. We have a right to have better laws that fit our lives today as solo owners that was once protected as a couple. Number 7, right to legal protection and representation. The estate paperwork that we have all faced arrived before the cash rolls started stopping. Legal exploitation of some grieving widows isn't even uncommon. It's a pattern. The absence of affordable legal protection isn't an oversight. It's a structural decision that keeps widows vulnerable and easier to ignore. We have a right to affordable and dependable legal representation to stand up for our rights when systems are built for us to fail without it. Article 8, a right to social inclusion and community participation. I had a widow once say to me, I was everywhere and nowhere after my husband died. She was still in the church pew. She was still in the neighborhood. She was still showing up, pick up the mail, but the invitations stopped. Social exclusion and isolation doesn't announce itself. It just quietly closes the door. We have a right to great community and social inclusion. That includes educating the people in our communities. Our local representatives need to say our name. They need to encourage neighbors to invite and help us with practical needs. Be a good neighbor to widows. Article number 9, right to remarriage and personal autonomy. We're told to grieve, but not too long, to move on, but not too fast, to honor them, but not hold on or sanctify them. Our autonomy shouldn't require an apology. That's not a cultural nuance. That's a rights issue. We have a right to have laws that don't penalize us for remarriage before a later age, like 55 or 60, to receive our rightful benefits. Younger widows must choose, do I lose future benefits? Mid-age widows must wait till 60 typically to see which benefits will be the most advantageous for them. There has to be a better way. Article 10, a right to recognition of unpaid labor and contributions. You cooked, you raised children, you cleaned the house, you managed the household, you held the family together for decades. Social Security calls it zero. The invisibility of caregiving over a woman's lifetime in benefit calculations isn't accidental. It's a policy choice, and it has a cost. Women live longer, so we disproportionately are impacted by the laws that do not benefit stay-at-home moms or caregivers who have to postpone careers or step away from them to care for spouse's illness. Your contributions count. And Article 11, we have a right to safety and protection from violence. This may surprise you, but in some third world countries, property grabbing is common, meaning once you become widowed, someone can just come and claim your property and ask you to leave. That's what I call a serious injustice. Sometimes it's in-law abuse. Sometimes it's predatory schemes targeting grieving women. Like looking up obituaries and then somehow finding yourself in someone's life. This happens everywhere, definitely in North America, not just abroad, but certainly the vulnerability does happen in third world countries in more severity. So when institutions don't look, when institutions don't look, they don't have to act. So the people who are here to protect us and they see violence happening or predatory behavior, they can choose to look away. And that's how systemic invisibility protects the wrong people. We have a right to fight for what is rightfully ours and not be mistreated for doing so. And the last one, a right to cultural and religious respect. Forced isolation, mourning requirements that strip your identity. Cultural harm wears the disguise of tradition. Widows deserve the freedom to grieve on their own terms in every culture, in every country, in every congregation. We have a right to religious involvement. We have a right to practice what we believe gives us strength in any cultural environment. When I met Rosalind Orwa from Rona Foundation in Kenya, she enlightened me at what happens when you become widowed and how you're not welcome back into church. And that really shocked me. I was so surprised by many of the things that I learned from her. And hearing from widows from around the country, it brings to light many of these articles and why. This Widows' Bill of Rights is unmasking the rights widows have to stand up in many areas that just simply need reform. It's overwhelming to see them all together. But let's remember, we do what we can when we see these injustices happen in our own lives or with someone that we love. This literally is the movement. So, what's the demand, right? Now we know some of the major areas. The articles are there for a reason. The demand is for governments, communities, employers, healthcare systems, places of worship to recognize that and these rights and work actively to eliminate any kind of injustices that are faced by widows. They're happening. We're bringing them up. We just need others to see it and see how we can create new solutions. So let's go and talk about some of the evidence because this was something I was very excited to share with all of you. And this report that I created was called Left Behind, State by State, Who is Serving Widows in America. And it was just interesting that over the 2 years, I really didn't know what the results would be because I myself did not know all the resources. But I asked a question 2 years ago, who is actually organized to serve widows in the United States? So we utilized Candid. Let's see here. We utilized Candid, which is GuideStar. It used to be GuideStar, but it lists all the nonprofits that exist, and kind of gives you their mission, their financial status. And what I did is I went through and I looked at who had actually some kind of capital. So without resources, you can't really be a resource, and you'll find out more about that with this evidence. So this is what I found. I asked this question, who's actually serving widows? And this is what I found, that we are a fraction of a percentage. We found that 1.9 million US nonprofits, only 2,385 of them serve widows in any capacity. Okay. So for a population of 11.6 million, 2,385 served widows in some capacity. That means that not specifically for widows, it could have been just women, and then we serve single, divorced, married, widowed women, right? I went ahead and included them in there so I could get the real number because some support for widows is worth counting, right? But here's the startling statistic. We are 0.13%. We aren't even a full 1% of nonprofit support and philanthropy in the most powerful and wealthy country in the world. Wow. Just sit with that for a second. We are a fraction of a percent. And some infrastructure exists on paper, but the care does not. Here's a list of 40 to 70% of registered nonprofits are inactive in the system. They launched, but they couldn't sustain. Why? Chronic underfunding, not because of a lack of will, is why widows organizations go inactive. Most states that see the majority Most states see the majority of their widow serving nonprofits dissolve or become dormant before they can even meaningfully help anyone. Right here. This shows Indiana, Arizona, Alaska, Alabama, and Connecticut. Wow. So the next part was of all these nonprofits, we broke it down into four categories. And the ones that were serving the most widows is funded the least. So the number one, more widow support actually leaves the United States, North America, than stays here. This was shocking news to me. And the number one is faith-based organizations are actually sending more funding outside of the US to global and international missions. Number two, military and veterans are the most organized, best funded, and serves the smallest widowed demographic in the United States. And the third one is fire, police, and first responders are locally concentrated and well supported. You'll see from the next slide. And then the fourth, local and national civilians are the smallest category of support, but the largest population and the most overlooked. I was not expecting this data to be so evident in how hard it is for widows to find what they need, but here it is. Less than $5 million is raised by the top five widow exclusive nonprofits. Think about that for a second. I think someone just told me the other day that the Humane Society every year raises around $115 million. Yeah, animals. Love them, but let's help the widows. Let's be there for the widows. These are the backbone of families and communities. So, what this graph shows you is some of the numbers that I found. I had no idea about the backstoppers, the fire and police and fire resource in St. Louis. Wow, amazing resources. The Army Distaff Foundation, military, 39 million. Another military, TAPS, another military, lots of military. But then when it comes down to the top five civilian widows combined, we can't even raise $5 million a year. This is crazy. The bar at the bottom, it represents all five top civilian widows combined, serving the largest population with the lowest funding. The states most affected with widows Isn't this crazy? The states most affected with widows are the least served states with the highest widow populations, are among the most acutely underserved. Here's California, 1.56 million widowed residents with 124 active nonprofits. Now remember, doing anything for widows, not exactly exclusive. What's one per one organization per 12,580 widows. It's impossible. Florida, the state, these are the two states that Modern Widows Club is registered in, California and Florida. Florida, 1.7 million, 62 active nonprofits, one per 18,000. These numbers are huge, and this is just eye-opening data. So in civilian widows, we have about 75,000 of them in our organization here at MWC, but it's clear that civilian widows are the most invisible. I love this quote right here by Helena Lapata. She is my favorite sociologist who wrote Current Widowhood, Myths versus Realities in the 1990s. And her book can just be you can read it and it just feels like nothing's changed in the last 30 years. Widowhood is not a crisis to be recovered from. It is a fundamental reorganization of self. And this is a big part of what has to happen for the future. So I'm going to share a couple of stories here with you, just three women's stories that really hit home with actually what we've been seeing here with the articles and also with the data. I think we all can see ourselves in some of this, some of both. But I wanted to just share some of the stories. So these are real quotes from ladies that we have heard of in our research who are in need of care. Here's one. I sat in my living room and realized I hadn't spoken to another human being in 4 days. That from Sandra. The casserole stopped, the calls grew fewer, the grief had not gotten smaller. It had gotten louder and all-encompassing. This is what we hear a lot in our communities at MWC every month and at our events and in our private conversations and our 844 number and in all the ways that we communicate with widows. Nobody questioned his ability to parent while alive, but the moment he was gone, suddenly everyone had an opinion on my ability. Christine, wow. A woman who was up at 5 a.m. packing lunches, at the school play, helping with homework at 7 p.m., getting her kids to bed, all while carrying a grief that most people couldn't even imagine. Wow. And the next one, I couldn't earn $1 over 22,000 per year or I'd lose my affordable housing lease. Financial hardship is more common than wealth. When 50% of the 11.6 US widows are living in poverty or near poverty, the system is clearly failing in the gap for her to progress and to become independent. So, when we have a Bill of Rights without data, that's aspiration. But data without rights is just statistics. And both without a story are just documents. We have a declaration now, 12 rights every widow deserves. We have 2 years of evidential research. The data is undeniable. And we have stories, way more than 3 stories. We've got hundreds of you who are here on this webinar or watching later. The truth, the human truth is behind the numbers. And together, this is the case for widow care to be a public health and a policy priority. So, what can we do next? How do we act, right? Now that we have this information, what are we going to do about it? I mean, remember now, International Widows Day started in 2010. So there have been people who have been working towards this in every niche in the world. And still, people are not knowing what International Widows Day is, why it needs to exist. This is, like I said, systemically invisible. So for individuals, we're going to give this Widow's Bill of Rights to you. You can take it. You can pick out a few. You can go to your legislators. You can go and talk to people of power who could potentially get movement and introduce some bills, change some laws, at least strike up a conversation, right? But it gives you a valid document to be able to walk in and have the confidence to say, this is happening, right? And we'll also have this presentation. Organizations partner with the Movement for Widow Care. Modern Widows Club started out as a small social community. 2 women in my home. I just welcomed 35 ladies this last weekend into my home at our Founders Experience event. And it was beautiful to see all of them there where it started in 2011. So in 2024, we became the Movement for Widow Care. So MWC is both Modern Widows Club and the Movement for Widow Care. The Movement for Widow Care is the education, the awareness, the advocacy, and the research. As you can see, we love our research because it informs what needs to happen for the ladies who tell us their stories. And then there's policymakers and there's funders, okay? The data's here. Become a widow advocate in an area, contact your Congress members and ask for the support on these issues. Go to town halls. I love it when our ladies go to town halls and they stand up in front of everyone and they state realities versus myths openly in an open forum. It's the best. And not last but not least, we got to vote. Always, always, always vote. So widows are counted as a powerful constituency base the block that they actually are. Right now, widows are not voting. I found this out from the Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers University, that 3 million widowers, men, are actually outvoting 11.6 million widowed women in this country. And that is a travesty. We have to do better. So we need to get widows to the polls. We need to get them in front of uh, our leaders and our decision makers so that they understand that we have needs and that we are a constituency block that has things to talk about. Okay. So it would be remiss of me to ask you not to support what we do here at MWC. We actually do have a goal for International Widows Day. It is one of our national opportunities to be able to raise awareness and to educate and to share the research that we conduct and also invite you into what it is that we're doing. Um, you know what? Uh, we ask people to donate to our organization in honor of someone or in memory of a loved one. So you can take your phone out wherever you are, unless you're actually on your phone, and we'll be sending you this later. And that will take you to a link where I hope that you will support because to be able to create resources to uh, address many of these issues, we need resources. And the movement for widow care is been here since 2024. I would love to do a lot more advocacy, and I would like to invite you to be a part of it. We do have on Facebook a widow advocacy group. If you can go find that, we'll let you. We do a lot of conversation there. That got started in 2022 when about 40 advocates went to Washington, D.C., and we had an International Widows Day forum. And it was really important to go and talk to legislators and also talk amongst ourselves, those who really have helped form the Widows' Bill of Rights in informing me on where the real issues are and where reform needed to happen. That was an important trip because I thought it didn't bear any fruit. But now I realize that we can go back and if we can get widows to vote and we can get them more involved in understanding the real issues, we can really create a dynamic group of widow advocates in this country. I love this saying, the strength of a society can be measured by how it treats its most vulnerable members. Widows deserve not just sympathy, but justice and equality and opportunity to rebuild their lives with dignity. And that is the work that we do here at Modern Widows Club, the movement for widow care. I am so grateful that you joined us. I'm going to do the last slide here where you can see how to contact us. Go to modernwidowsclub.org and learn more about our organization, our outreach, our outcomes, our legacy award that, like we gave Lord Lumba. You can email us at support@modernwidowsclub.org, and you can call us at 844-429-4369. You can see here we're on quite a few social sites, and I love when we learn so much from everyone in our community, from all of these social sites, and we're just honored to have you here. I want to thank you for taking your time this evening to care for widow support and advocacy. It really means everything. And I believe that we are on a path to be able to create um, change for generations to come. So please be blessed. We might have some questions, and this is the end of the webinar, but we might have a few questions. I don't know if um, Heather has that. No? Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for being on the webinar, and we will talk soon. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.